In this video, I'm going to cover the first UFO hearing in over half a century. And I'll probably upload a series of these videos covering segments of the hearing as opposed to doing one long video covering the totality of the hearing. Here is Representative Mike Gallagher of Wisconsin taking the mic.
It's also been reported that there have been UAP observed and interacting with and flying over sensitive military facilities, particularly, and not just ranges, but some facilities housing our strategic nuclear forces.
So there's a very long and extremely well documented record of UAP being interested in anything nuclear, whether it's missile silos housing ICBMs, weapon depots, nuclear laboratories, even the Nevada test site where they would detonate nuclear bombs. It has been stated by investigative journalist George Knapp that there were people hired when they were doing those detonations to keep a lookout for UAP. And Knapp said that sometimes the UAP would come a little bit before the detonations, sometimes a little bit after, and even sometimes during the detonations. So, and these incidents are so well documented, so well corroborated, so many witnesses that I hate to say it, but I'm convinced there's validity to this. Now, that may appear as if I'm contradicting myself, right? Because I always say I'm not 100% we're dealing with non-human intelligence. Well, you know, a little contradiction never hurt anybody, but I'm still not 100%. But when you actually dig into it and read a book like this, UFOs and Nukes by Robert Hastings, which I have not finished because I have trouble reading, although my sleep has improved recently, so I'm reading a lot more in the very recent past. So I hope to get to that book and read it in its totality. But my point is that when you watch the various documentaries out there and listen to the witnesses, and see the FOIA documents that have been acquired where our own U.S. government has investigated these incidents and documented themselves, it's really clear something very mysterious is going on. And I really can't buy into the idea that it's just a bunch of perfect storms manifesting again and again, and it's just human error. Nope, there's just too many of them with too many credible people, and I just can't do it. And frankly, I think this is one of the primary reasons the United States government long ago determined to keep this information about UAP classified, because they don't want to have to announce to 300 Americans that there's mysterious machines in our atmosphere that are interested in nuclear weaponry and sometimes tampers with it, let alone surveils it. And so what's interesting here is that we have a sitting representative of the House during a UFO hearing asking officials from the Pentagon about this. That to me is a testament to how well documented these incidents are. And if the Pentagon doesn't come clean on these incidents and level with the Congress and level with the American people, they're just digging themselves a deeper hole, because sooner or later, it's inevitable that it will come out in a more substantial way. And so they can either do it now, or they can obfuscate and delay and do it later. And it's pretty obvious when the blowback will be worse. Here's an excerpt from the book UFO and Nukes by Robert Hastings. Since 1973, I have personally interviewed more than 150 former and retired U.S. military personnel regarding their involvement in such cases. These individuals, ranging from retired officers to former airmen, soldiers, and sailors, describe extraordinary encounters which have obvious national security implications.
One such incident allegedly occurred at Malmstrom Air Force Base, in which 10 of our nuclear ICBMs were rendered inoperable. At the same time, a glowing red orb was observed overhead. I'm not commenting on the accuracy of this. I'm simply asking you whether you're aware of it and whether you have any comment on the accuracy of that report.
In October of 2021, at the Washington Press Club, a group of retired military personnel held a conference where they discussed their very disturbing experiences in which UAP reportedly got in very close proximity to nuclear ICBM missiles and tampered with the technology itself. Here is a clip from that conference, and the person talking is named Robert Salas, and he was a missile launch officer during the Maelstrom UAP incident.
In March of 1967, UFOs disabled 20 nuclear missiles within the span of 8 days. If you include Dave Shindeli's incident, within 6 months, UFOs shut down 30 nuclear missiles. There's no question about this, as far as we're concerned. I think the testimony is overwhelming.
It should be noted that these UAP incursions are not relegated exclusively to the United States of America. Incursions such as these have been reported in Russia. Most notably, there was a case that was reported where a UAP came in close proximity to a ICBM missile base and turned the missiles on. And further, there's that famous case from the United Kingdom, Rendlesham Forest, in which a UAP landed near a weapon storage depot. So these cases are quite common, not just in the United States.
Let me pass that to Mr. Bray. If you've been looking at UAPs over the last 3 years.
That data is not within the holdings of the UAP task force.
Okay, but are you aware of the report, or that the data exists somewhere?
I have heard stories. I have not seen the official data on that.
So you've just seen informal stories, no official assessment that you've done or exists within DoD that you're aware of regarding the Malmstrom incident?
All I can speak to is what's within my cognizance of the UAP task force, and we have not looked at that incident.
Well, I would say, it's a pretty high-profile incident. I don't claim to be an expert on this, but that's out there in the ether. You're the guys investigating it. I mean, who else is doing it?
So in my fury, I have migrated to the DSLR and the green screen. So according to historian Robert Hastings, there are documents and testimony of intermittent UFO activity around nuclear weapons related facilities since 1945. And the most recent sighting near a nuclear facility that Robert Hastings is aware of, at least at the time of writing this book, is 2010. There are so many of these incidents that have been well documented, and people have acquired official government documents on these type of incursions. And yet, Deputy Director of Naval Intelligence Scott Bray of the UAP Task Force hasn't seen official data on the Malmstrom UAP incident, presumably others. Does anyone think this makes any semblance of sense? I mean, even if you're a rabid skeptic, how are you going to make sense of this in an objective way? It's comical. It reeks of, yes, there's been a cover-up, and it continues to this day. It doesn't add up at all. ICBMs are part of the nuclear triad, the crown jewels of national security for the United States of America. If there is anything coming in proximity of these installations, merely surveilling them, let alone tampering with the technology, this is obviously a number one priority for the United States Department of Defense. And yet, Deputy Director of Naval Intelligence Scott Bray of the UAP Task Force doesn't know anything about it. He just heard stories, but other than that, that's all he knows. That doesn't make any sense. This is absurd.
If something was officially brought to our attention, we would look at it. There are many things that are out there in the ether that aren't officially brought to our attention.
So how would it have to be officially brought to your attention? I'm bringing it to your attention.
Sure,
this is pretty official.
Sure. So we'll go back and take a look at it, but generally there is some authoritative figure that says there is an incident that occurred. We'd like you to look at this. But in terms of just tracking what may be in the media that says that something occurred at this time, at this place, there are probably a lot of leads that we would have to follow up on. I don't think we are resourced to do that right now.
Well, I don't claim to be an authoritative figure, but for what it's worth, I would like you to look into it. And
Sure.
if for no other reason, you could dismiss it and say this is not worth wasting resources on.
Will do.
The response to Maelstrom was, well, we don't look at outside sources. Well, hold on a second. You're the source.
You're the source.
That was a DOD IIR written. You guys wrote it. It got released through FOIA. You had your own commanders coming up and telling you about it. What do you mean you don't talk to outside sources? You're the source. So I can't believe they were saying this for the record.
I think Luis Elizondo put it spectacularly. And by the way, that clip is from an interview done by the podcast Need to Know with Ross Coulthart and Bryce Zabel. And that interview is accrued 100,000 views thus far. I'll put a link to it in the description. It was really special. So as Luis Elizondo was saying, you're the source. You don't have to track down what's been in the media. These are DOD properties. You guys investigated it. This is your first line of deterrence on a world scale. Nah, son, this doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And I think in that interview that I just cited, Elizondo says something along the lines of, regarding these officials, this is either gross negligence or they are lying. Choose your poison. I'm not necessarily completely clear on the context, because I do think Elizondo said that they may be completely unaware of UAP the way they should be, as a sort of plausible deniability, right? Get the people up on the stand, if you will, who know nothing. You don't know anything, you can't lie, right? This is only the beginning, in my opinion. There will be more hearings. And these future hearings are going to make the scenario increasingly difficult for the DOD, for them to continue the narrative that they've had for 70 plus years. When you get insiders, people that should know, with one message, and then you have the DOD with another message, that is not a survivable situation. Something will have to give. Which brings me to something really important. What does your snack inventory look like? Because you're going to need it for what's to come. Please do not forget to subscribe. And if you'd like to support this channel, you can check out my merch shop where I sell t-shirts. You can become a patron. You can become a YouTube member. You could even give me a one-time donation. And all those possibilities are in the description box below. Or you can just slap a like on this bad boy and I'll appreciate it so much. Thank you so much for watching. And I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Special thanks to all patrons, YouTube members, those that have bought merch, those that have given me a one-time donation. I couldn't do without you. Thank you so much. See you in the next episode.